Then this week we're to go to Belfast. Just as well he has to go to Innis, his father's anniversary, the 27th. It wouldn't be pleasant if he did. Suppose our rooms at the hotel were beside each other, and any fooling went on in the new bed. I couldn't tell him to stop and not bother me with him in the next room. Or perhaps some Protestant clergyman with a cough knocking on the wall. Then he wouldn't believe next day we didn't do something. It's all very well, a husband, but you can't fool a lover. After me telling him we never did anything. Of course he didn't believe me. No, it's better he's going where he is. Besides, something always happens with him. The time going to the Mallow concert at Maryborough, ordering boiling soup for the two of us. Then the bell rang. Out he walks down the platform with the soup splashing about, taking spoonfuls of it. Hadn't he the nerve, and the waiter after him making a holy show of us, screeching in confusion for the engine to start. But he wouldn't pay till he finished it. The two gentlemen in third-class carriage said he was quite right. So he was too. He's so pig-headed sometimes when he gets a thing into his head. A good job he was able to open the carriage door with his knife, or they'd have taken us on to Cork. I suppose that was done out of revenge on him. Oh, I love jaunting in a train or a car with lovely soft cushions. I wonder, will he take a first class for me? He might want to do it in the train by tipping the guard well. Oh, I suppose there'll be the usual idiots of men gaping at us with their eyes as stupid as ever. That was an exceptional man, the common working man that left us alone in the carriage that day going to Howth. I'd like to find out something about him. One or two tunnels, perhaps. Then you have to look out of the window, all the nicer then coming back. Suppose I never came back. What would they say? Eloped with him? On the stage, the last concert I sang at were. It's over a year ago. When was it? St. Teresa's Hall, Clarendon Street. Little chits of missies they are now singing. Kathleen Kearney and her like, on account of father being in the army, and my singing the absent-minded beggar. I'm wearing a brooch for Lord Roberts when I had the map of it all. And Poldy, not Irish enough. Was it him managed it this time? I wouldn't put it past him. Like he got me to sing in the Stabat Mater by going around saying he was putting lead kindly light to music. I put him up to that, till the Jesuits found out he was a Freemason. Thumping the piano, Lead thou me on, copied from an old opera. Yes, and he was going about with some of those Sinn Féin lately, or whatever they call themselves, talking his usual trash and nonsense. He says the little man he showed me without the neck is very intelligent. The coming man Griffith. Is he well? He doesn't look it. That's all I can say. Still, it must have been him. He knew there was a boycott. I hate the mention of politics. After the war, that Petora, Ladysmith and Blonfontein were Gardner Lieutenant Stanley G, 8th Battalion, 2nd East Lancashire Regiment. Of eccentric fever he was. A lovely fellow in khaki, and just the right height over me. I'm sure he was brave too. He said I was lovely the evening we kissed goodbye at the canal lock. my Irish beauty. He was pale with excitement about going away, or we'd been seen from the road. He couldn't stand properly, and I so hot as I never felt. They could have made their peace in the beginning, or old Paul and the rest of the old Krugers. Go and fight it out between them instead of dragging on for years, killing any fine-looking men there were with their fever. If he was even decently shot, it wouldn't have been so bad. I love to see a regiment pass in review. The first time I saw the Spanish cavalry at La Roque, it was lovely. After looking across the bay at Algeciras, all the lights of the rock like fireflies, or those sham battles on the 15 acres. The Prince of Wales' Own, or the Lancers. Oh, the Lancers, they're grand. Or the Dublins that won at Tugela. His father made his money over selling the horses for the cavalry. Well, he could buy me a nice present up in Belfast after what I give. They have lovely linen up there, or one of those nice kimono things. I must buy a mothball like I had before to keep in the drawer with them. It would be exciting going around with him shopping, buying those things in a new city. Better leave the ring behind. Want to keep turning and turning to get it over the knuckle there. Or they might bail it round the town in their papers and tell the police on me. But they'd think we were married. Oh, let them all go and smother themselves. For the fat lot I care. He has plenty of money, and he's not a marrying man, so somebody better get it out of him.
If I could find out whether he likes me. I looked a bit wishy, of course, when I looked close in the hand glass powdering. A mirror never gives you the expression. Besides screeching down on me like that all the time, with the big hip bones. He's heavy too with his hairy chest for this heat. Always having to lie down for them. Better for him to put it in me from behind, the way Mrs. Mastiaski told me her husband made her. Like the dogs do it. And stick out her tongue as far as ever she could. And he's so quiet and mild with his tin gate and kicker. Can you ever be up to me in the way it takes them? Lovely stuff in that blue suit he had on, and stylish tie and socks with the sky blue silk things on them. He's certainly well off. I know by the cut of the clothes he has, and his heavy watch. But he was like a perfect devil for a few minutes, after he came back with a stop press tearing up the tickets and swearing blazes because he lost 20 quid. He said he lost over that outsider that won, and half he put on for me on account of Lenihan's tip. Cursing him to the lowest pits, that sponger. He was making free with me after the Glencree dinner, coming back that long jolt over the feather-bed mountain, after the Lord Mayor looking at me with his dirty eyes. Val Dillon, that big heathen. I first noticed him at dessert when I was cracking the nuts with my teeth. I wished I could have picked every morsel of that chicken out of my fingers. It was so tasty and browned and as tender as anything, only for I didn't want to eat everything on the plate. Those forks and fish slices were hallmarked silver too. I wish I had some. I could easily have slipped a couple into my muff when I was playing with them. Them always hanging out of them for money in a restaurant. For the bit you put down your throat, we have to be thankful for our mangy cup of tea. Itself as a great compliment to be noticed the way the world is divided. In any case, if it's going to go on, I want at least 2 other good chemises for one thing, but I don't know what kind of drawers he likes. None at all, I think. Didn't he say yes, and half the girls in Gibraltar never wore them either? Naked as God made them. That Andalusian singing. Hermanola. She didn't make much secret of what she hadn't. Yes, and the second pair of silkette stockings is laddered after 1 week's wear. I could have brought them back to Lures this morning and kick up a row and made that one change them. Only not to upset myself and run the risk of walking into him and ruining the whole thing. And one of those kid-fitting corsets I'd want. Advertised cheap in the Gentlewoman with elastic gores on the hips. He saved the one I have, but that's no good. What did they say? They give a delightful figure line, 11 and 6, obviating that unslightly broad appearance across the lower back to reduce flesh. My belly is a bit too big. I'll have to knock off the stout at dinner. Or am I getting too fond of it? The last they sent from O'Rourke's was as flat as a pancake. He makes his money easy. Larry, they call him. The old mangy parcel he sent at Christmas. A cottage cake and a bottle of hogwash he tried to palm off as claret that he couldn't get anyone to drink. God spare his spit for fear he'd die of the drouth. Or I must do a few breathing exercises. I wonder is that anti-fat any good? Might overdo it. Thin ones are not so much the fashion now. Garters, that much. I have the violet pair I wore today. That's all he bought me out of the check he got on the first. Oh no, there was the face lotion I finished the last of yesterday that made my skin look new. I told him over and over again, get that made up in the same place and don't forget it. God only knows whether he did after all. I said to him, I'll know by the bottle. Anyway, if not, I suppose I'll only have to wash in my piss like beef tea or chicken soup with some of that Uppanax and violet. I thought it was beginning to look coarse or old. I bet the skin underneath is much finer where it peeled off there on my finger after the burn. It's a pity it isn't all like that. And the 4 paltry handkerchiefs, about 6 shillings and all. Sure, you can't get on in this world without style. All gone in food and rent when I get it. I'll lash it around, I tell you, in fine style. I always want to throw a handful of tea into the pot, measuring and mincing. If I buy a pair of old brogues itself, do you like those new shoes? Yes. How much were they? I've no clothes at all. The brown costume and the skirt and jacket and the one at the cleaners. 3. What's that for any woman? Cutting up this old hat and patching up the other. The men won't look at you and the women try to walk on you because they know you've no man. Then with all them things getting dearer every day. For the 4 years more I have of life up to 35. No, what am I at all? I'll be 33 in September. Will I? What? Oh well. Look at that Mrs. Galbraith. She's much older than me. I saw her when I was out last week. Her beauty's on the wane. She was a lovely woman. Magnificent head of hair on her. Down to her waist, tossing it back like that. Like Kitty O'Shea in Granton Street. First thing I did every morning to look across, see her combing it as if she loved it and was full of it. Pity I only got to know her the day before we left. And that Mrs. Langtry, the Jersey lily the Prince of Wales was in love with. I suppose he's like the first man going the roads, only for the name of a king. They're all made the one way, only a black man's I'd like to try. A beauty up to, what was she? 45? There was some funny story about the jealous old husband. What was it all? And an oyster knife. He made her wear a kind of a tin thing around her. And the Prince of Wales, yes, he had the oyster knife. Can't be a true thing like that. Like some of those books he brings me, the works of Master Francois somebody, supposed to be a priest, about a child born out of her ear because her bum gut fell out. A nice word for any priest to write. And her A-E. Heilka go dugga Amadin or B.A. Shin.
I hate that pretending. Of all things with the old black art's face on him, anybody can say it's not true. And that ruby and fair Terence, he brought me that twice, I remember, when I came to page 50. The part where she hangs him out of a hook with a cord flagellate. Sure, there's nothing for a woman in that. All invention made up about the drinking the champagne out of her slipper after the ball was over, like the infant Jesus in the crib at Inchicore, in the Blessed Virgin arms. Sure, no woman could have a child that big taken out of her, and I thought it first came out of her side because how could she go to the chamber when she wanted to, and she, a rich lady? Of course she felt honoured. HRH. He was in Gibraltar the year I was born. I bet he found lilies there too where he planted the tree. He planted more than that in his time. He might have planted me too if he'd come a bit sooner. Then I wouldn't be here as I am. He ought to chuck that free man with the paltry few shillings he knocks out of it and go into an office or something where he'd get regular pay, where they could put him up on a throne to count the money all the day. Of course he prefers plottering about the house, so you can't stir with him any side. What's your programme today? I wish he'd even smoke a pipe like my father to get the smell of a man, or pretending to be mooching about for advertisements when he could have been in Mr. Cuff still, only for what he did, then sending me to try to patch it up. I could have got him promoted there to be the manager. He gave a great morata once or twice. First he was as stiff as the mischief, really and truly, Mrs. Bloom, only I felt rotten, simply with the old rubbishy dress I had lost the leads out of, the tails with no cut in it. But they're coming into fashion again. I brought it simply to please him. I knew it was no good by the finish. Pity I changed my mind going to Todd and Burns, as I said, and not Lee's. It was just like the shop itself, a rummage sale, a lot of trash. I hate those rich shops. Get on your nerves, nothing kills me altogether, only he thinks he knows a great deal about a woman's dress and cooking, mothering everything he can, scour off the shelves into it. If I went by his advices, every blessed hat I put on. Does that suit me? Yes. Take that, that's all right. The one like a wedding cake standing up miles off my head, he said, suited me. Or the dish cover one, coming down on my backside on pins and needles about the shop girl in that place in Grafton Street I had the misfortune to bring him into. And she, as insolent as ever she could be with her smirk, saying, I'm afraid we're giving you too much trouble. What's she there for? But I started out of her. Yes, he was awfully stiff and no wonder, but she changed the second time. He looked totally pig-headed as usual, like the soup, but I could see him looking very hard at my chest when he stood up to open the door for me. It was nice of him to show me out in any case. I'm extremely sorry, Mrs. Bloom, believe me, without making it too marked, the first time after him being insulted and me supposed to be his wife, I just half smiled. Hey, Mrs. Bloom, believe me, without making it too marked, the first time after him being insulted and me supposed to be his wife, I just half smiled. I know my chest was that way out at the door when he said I'm extremely sorry, and I'm sure you were. Yes, I think he made them a bit firmer sucking them like that for so long. He made me thirsty. Titties, he calls them. I had to laugh. Yes, this one anyhow. Stiff the nipple gets for the least thing. I'll get him to keep that up, and I'll take those eggs beaten up with marsala, fatten them out for him. What are all those veins and things? Curious the way it's made too the same. In case of twins, they're supposed to represent beauty. Placed up there like those statues in the museum, one of them pretending to hide her hand. Are they so beautiful? Of course, compared with that man, looks like with the two bags full, and his other thing hanging down out of him, or sticking up at you like a hat rack. No wonder they hide it with a cabbage leaf. The woman is beauty, of course. That's admitted when he said I could pose for a picture naked to some rich fella in Holly Street. when he lost a job in Healy's and I was selling the clothes and strumming in the coffee palace? Would I be like that bath of the nymph with my hair down? Yes, only she's younger. I'm a little like that dirty bitch in the Spanish photo. He has the nymphs used. They go about like that. I asked him.
That disgusting Cameron Highlander behind the meat market, or that other wretch with the red hair, behind the tree where the statue of the fish used to be when I was passing, pretend he was pissing, standing out for me to see it with his baby clothes up to one side. The Queen's own. Oh, they were a nice lot. It's well the Surreys relieved them. They're always trying to show it to you. Every time nearly I passed outside the men's greenhouse near the Harcourt Street station, just to try some fellow or other trying to catch my eye, or if it was the one of the 7 wonders of the world. Oh, and the stink of those rotten places. The night coming home with Poldy after Comerford's party, oranges and lemons to make you feel nice and watery. I went into one of them. It was so biting cold, I couldn't keep it. When was that? 93? The canal was frozen. Yes, it was a few months after. A pity a couple of the Camerons weren't there to see me squatting in the men's place. Mea Darrow. I tried to draw a picture of it before I tore it up like a sausage or something. I wonder they're not afraid going about of getting a kick or a bang or something there. And that word meant something with hoses in it. And he came out with some jawbreakers about the incarnation. He never can explain a thing simply the way a body can understand. Then he goes and burns the bottom out of the pan, all for his kidney. This one, not so much. There's the mark of his teeth where he tried to bite the nipple. I had to scream out. Aren't they fearful trying to hurt you? I had a great breast of milk with Millie enough for 2. What was the reason of that, he said. I could have got £1 a week as a wet nurse, all swelled out the morning. That delicate-looking student that stopped in number 28 with Citron's Penrose nearly caught me washing through the window, only for I snapped up the towel to my face. That was his studenting hurt me. They used to weaning her till he got Dr. Brady to give me the belladonna prescription. I had to get him to suck them, they were so hard. He said it was sweeter and thicker than cows. Then he wanted to milk me into the tea. Well, he's beyond everything. I declare somebody ought to put him in the budget, if I could remember the one half of the things and write a book out of it. The works of Master Poldy, yes. And it's so much smoother, the skin, much. An hour he was at them, and I'm sure by the clock like some kind of a big infant had at me. They want everything in their mouth, all the pleasure the men get out of the woman. I can feel his mouth. Oh, Lord, I must stretch myself. I wished he was here or somebody to let myself go and come again like that. I feel all fire inside me. Or if I could dream it, when he made me spend the second time tickling me behind with his finger. I was coming for about 5 minutes with my legs round him. I had to hug him after. Oh, Lord, I wanted to shout out all sorts of things. Fuck or shit or anything. At all. Only not to look ugly or those lines from the strain. Who knows the way he'd take it? You want to feel your way with a man. They're not all like him, thank God. Some of them want you to be so nice about it. I noticed the contrast. He does it and doesn't talk. I gave my eyes that look, with my hair a bit loose from the tumbling and my tongue between my lips. Up to him, the savage brute. Thursday, Friday, 1 Saturday, 2 Sunday, 3... Oh, Lord, I can't wait till Monday.
Free from train somewhere whistling. The strength those engines have in them, like big giants, and the water rolling over and out of them, all sighs, like the end of love's old sweet song. The poor men that have to be out all the night from their wives and families in those roasting engines. Stifling it was today. I'm glad I burnt the half of those old Freemans and photo bits, leaving things like that lying around. He's getting very careless and threw the rest of them up in the WC. I'll get him to cut them tomorrow for me, instead of having them there for the next year, to get a few pence for them. Have him asking where's last January's paper, and all those old overcoats I bundled out of the hall, making the place hotter than it is. The rain was lovely just after my beauty sleep. I thought it was going to get like Gibraltar. My goodness, the heat there before the Levanter came on. Black as night, and the glare of the rock standing up in it like a big giant, compared to their 3-rock mountain they think is so great. With the red sentries here and there, the poplars, and all they white hot. And the mosquito nets, and the smell of the rainwater in those tanks. Watching the sun all the time weltering down on you. Faded all that lovely frock. Father's friend Mrs. Stanhope sent me from the B Marché, Paris. What a shame, my dearest Doggerina. She wrote, and what she was, very nice. What's this her other name was? Just a PC to tell you, I sent the little present. I've just had a jolly warm bath and feel a very clean dog now. Enjoyed it. Wogger, she called him. Wogger would give anything to be back in Gib and hear you sing in old Madrid or waiting. Conconi is the name of those exercises. He bought me one of those new, some word I couldn't make out. Shawls. Amusing things. But hair for the least thing. Still, they're lovely, I think. Don't you? We'll always think of the lovely teas we had together. Scrumptious currant scones and raspberry wafers I adore. Well now, dearest Doggerina, be sure and write soon. Kind. She left out regards to your father, also Captain Grove. With love, yours awfully, XXXXX. She didn't look a bit married, just like a girl. He was years older than her, Wogger he was, awfully fond of me when he held down the wire with his foot for me to step over at the bullfight at La Linea, when that matador Gomez was given the bull's ear. Clothes we had to wear. Whoever invented them expecting you to walk up Killiney Hill? Then, for example, at that picnic, all stazed up. You can't do a blessed thing in them in a crowd, run or jump out of the way. That's why I was afraid when that other ferocious old bull began to charge the bandoleros with the sashes of the 2 things in their hats, and the brutes of men shouting, "Bravo, Toro!" Sure, the women were as bad in their nice white mantillas, ripping all the whole insides out of those poor horses. I never heard of such a thing in all my life. Yes, he used to break his heart at me, taking off the dog, barking in Bell Lane, poor brute, and it sick. What became of them ever? I suppose they're dead long ago, the 2 of them. It's like all through a mist. Makes you feel so old. I made the scones, of course. I had everything all to myself. Then a girl, Hester. We used to compare our hair. Mine was thicker than hers. She showed me how to settle it at the back when I put it up. And what's this else? How to make a knot on a thread with the one hand. We were like cousins. What age was I? Then the night of the storm, I slept in her bed. She had her arms round me. Then we were fighting in the morning with the pillow. What fun! He was watching me whenever he got an opportunity. at the band on the Almeida Esplanade when I was with Father and Captain Grove. I looked up at the church first, and then at the windows, then down, and our eyes met. I felt something go through me like all needles. My eyes were dancing. I remember after, when I looked at myself in the glass, hardly recognised myself, the change. I had a splendid skin from the sun and the excitement like a rose. I didn't get a wink of sleep. It wouldn't have been nice on account of her, but I could have stopped it in time. She gave me the Moonstone to read. That was the first I read of Wilkie Collins. East Lynne I read, and The Shadow of Ashlydyat, Mrs. Henry Wood. Henry Dunbar by that other woman. I lent him afterwards with Mulvey's photo in it, so, as he see, I wasn't without. And Lord Lytton, Eugene Aram. Molly Bourne she gave me by Mrs. Hungerford, on account of the name. I don't like books with a Molly in them. Like that one he bought me about the one from Flanders, a whore, always shoplifting anything she could, cloth and stuff and yards of it.
This blanket is too heavy on me. That's better. I haven't even one decent nightdress. This thing gets all rolled up under me. Beside him and his filling, that's better. I used to be weltering then in the heat, my shift drenched with the sweat stuck to the cheeks of my bottom on the chair. When I stood up, they were so fattish and firm. Bugs, tons of them at night, and the mosquito nets. I couldn't read a line. Lord, how long ago? Seems centuries, of course. They never come back. And she didn't put her dress right on it either. She may have noticed her wogger. People were always going away, and we never. I remember that day, the waves and the boats, with their high heads rocking in the swell of the ship. Those officers' uniforms and shore leave made me seasick. He didn't say anything. He was very serious. I had the high-buttoned boots on, and my skirt was blowing. She kissed me 6 or 7 times. Didn't I cry? Yes, I believe I did, or near it. My lips were teetering when I said goodbye. She had a gorgeous wrap of some special kind of blue colour on her for the voyage, made it very peculiarly to one side like, and it was extremely pretty. It got as dull as the devil after they went. I was almost planning to run away. Where our father, our aunt, our marriage, waiting, always waiting to guide him to me, waiting, nor speed his flying feet. Their damn guns bursting and booming all over the shop, especially the Queen's birthday, and throwing everything down in all directions if you didn't open the windows. When General Ulysses Grant, whoever he was or did, supposed to be some great fella, landed off the ship, an old Spragg, the consul that was there from before the flood, dressed up, poor man, and he in mourning for his son. Then the same old reveille in the morning, and the drums rolling, and the unfortunate poor devils of soldiers walking about with mess tins smelling the place. More than the old long-bearded Jews in their jalabies and Levites, assembly and sound and clear, and gunfire for the men to cross the lines, and the warden marching with his keys to lock the gate, and the bagpipes, and only Captain Groves and Father talking about Rorke's Drift and Plevna, and Sir Garnet Wolseley and Gordon at Khartoum lighting their pipes for them every time they went out. Drunken old devil with his grog on the windowsill. Catch him leaving any of it, picking his nose trying to think of some dirty story to tell up in a corner. But he never forgot himself when I was there, sending me out of the room in some blind excuse, paying his compliments. The Bushmills whiskey talking, of course. But he'd do the same to the next woman that came along. I suppose he died of galloping drink ages ago. The days, like years, not a letter from a living soul, except the odd few times I posted to myself with bits of paper in them. So bored sometimes I could fight with my nails, listening to that old Arab with the one eye and his hiyas of an instrument, singing his hiya, 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 all my compliments on your hodgepodge of your hiyas, as bad as now with the hands hanging off me looking out of the window. There was a nice fella even in the opposite house, that medical in Hall Street the nurse was after. When I put on my gloves and hat at the window to show I was going out, not the notion of what I meant. Weren't they thick? Never understand what you say even. You'd want to print it up on a big poster. Not even if you shake hands twice with the left. He didn't recognise me either when I half frowned at him outside Westland Road Chapel. Where does their great intelligence come from, I'd like to know? Grey matter? They have it all in their tail, if you ask me. Those country gougers in the City Arms, intelligence? They had a damn sight less than the bulls and the cows they were selling. The meat and the coalman's bell. That noisy bugger trying to swindle me with the wrong bill he took out of his hat. What a pair of paws and pots and pans and kettles to mend any broken bottles for a poor man today. And no visitors or post ever. Except his cheques or some advertisement like the wonder worker they sent him addressed, Dear Madam. Only his letter and the card from Millie this morning. See, she wrote a letter to him. Who did I get the last letter from? Oh, Mrs. Dwayne. Now, whatever possessed her to write after so many years, to know the recipe I have for pesto madrileño? Chloe Dillon, since she wrote to say she was married to a very rich architect. If I'm to believe all I hear, with a villa and 8 rooms. Her father was an awfully nice man. He was near 70, always good humour. Well, now Miss Tweedy or Miss Gillespie. There's the pioneer. That was a solid silver coffee service he had too on the mahogany sideboard, then dying so far away. I hate people that always have their poor story to tell. Everybody has their own troubles. That poor Nancy Blake died a month ago of acute pneumonia. Well, I didn't know her so well as all that, and she was Floy's friend more than mine. It's a bother having to answer. He always tells me the wrong things, and no stops to say, like making a speech, your sad bereavement, sympathy. I always make that mistake, and Newfew with 2 W's in. I hope he'll write me a longer letter next time, if it's a thing. He really likes me. Oh, thanks be to the great God.
I got somebody to give me what I badly wanted, to put some heart up into me. You've no chances at all in this place like you used long ago. I wish somebody would write me a love letter. His wasn't much, and I told him he could write what he liked. Yours ever, Hugh Boylan. In old Madrid, silly women believe love is sign. I am dying still. If he wrote it, I suppose there'd be some truth in it. True or no, it fills up your whole day in life. Always something to think about every moment and see it all around you like a new world. I could write the answer in bed to let him imagine me. Short, just a few words. Not those long crossed letters Addie Dillon used to write to the fellows that was something in the forecourts that jilted her after, out of the lady's letter writer. When I told her to say a few simple words, he could twist how he liked, not acting with precipitancy, with equal candour. The greatest earthly happiness, answer to a gentleman's proposal, affirmatively. My goodness, there's nothing else. It's all very fine for them, but as for being a woman, as soon as you're old, they might as well throw you out in the bottom of the ash pit. Mulvey's was the first, when I was in bed that morning, and Mrs. Rubio brought it in with the coffee. She stood there standing when I asked her to hand me, and I pointed at them. I couldn't think of the word, a hairpin to open it with, a horquilla, disobliging old thing, and it staring her in the face, with her switch of false hair on her, and vain about her appearance, ugly as she was, near 80 or 100. Her face a mass of wrinkles with all her religion. domineering, because she never could get over the Atlantic fleet coming in, half the ships of the world, and the Union Jack flying with all her carabineros, because 4 drunken English sailors took all the rock from them, and because I didn't run into Mass often enough in Santa Maria to please her. With their shawl up on her, except when there was a marriage on, with her miracles of the saints and her black blessed Virgin, with the silver dress and the sun dancing, 3 times on Easter Sunday morning. And when the priest was going by with the bell bringing the Vatican to the dime, blessing herself for his Majestad, an admirer he signed it. I near jumped out of my skin. I wanted to pick him up when I saw him following me along the Calle Real in the shop window. Then he tipped me, just in passing. I never thought he'd write making an appointment. I had it inside my petticoat bodice all day, reading it up in every hole and corner while Father was up at the drill instructing, to find out by the handwriting or the language of stamps. Singing, I remember, "Shall I wear a white rose?" And I wanted to put on the old stupid clock to near the time. He was the first man kissed me under the Moorish wall, my sweetheart when a boy. It never entered my head what kissing meant till he put his tongue in my mouth. His mouth was sweet like, young. I put my knee up to him a few times to learn the way. What did I tell him? I was engaged, for fun, to the son of a Spanish nobleman named Don Miguel de la Flora, and he believed that I was to be married to him in 3 years' time. There's many a true word spoken in jest. There is a flower that bloometh. A few things I told him true about myself, just for him to be imagining. The Spanish girls he didn't like. I suppose one of them wouldn't have him. I got him excited. He crushed all the flowers in my bosom he brought me. He couldn't count the pesetas in the Perigordas till I taught him. Capaquin he came from, he said, on the Blackwater. But it was too short. Then the day before he left, May, yes, it was May when the infant King of Spain was born. I'm always like that in the spring. I'd like a new fellow every year up on the tip-top under the rock gun near O'Hara's Tower. I told him it was struck by lightning, and all about the old Barbary apes they sent to Clapham without a tail, careering all over the show on each other's back. Mrs. Rubio said she was a regular old rock scorpion, robbing the chickens out of Vince's farm, and throw stones at you if you went near. He was looking at me. I had that white blouse on, open at the front, to encourage him as much as I could. I said I was tired. We lay over the fir tree cove, a wild place, I suppose. It must be the highest rock in existence. The galleries and casemates, and those frightful rocks in St. Michael's Cave with the icicles or whatever they call them hanging down. And ladders, all the mud clutching my boots. I'm sure that's the way down. The monkeys go under the sea to Africa when they die. The ships out far like chips. That was the Malta-boat passing. Yes.
The sea and the sky. You could do what you like. Lie there forever. He caressed them outside. They love doing that. It's the roundness there. I was leaning over him with my white rice straw hat to take the newness out of it. The left side of my face the best. My blouse open for his last day. Transparent kind of shirt he had. I could see his chest, pink. He wanted to touch mine with his for a moment, but I wouldn't let him. He was awfully put on at first, for fear, you never know, consumption or leave me with a child, embarazada. That old servant Innes told me that even one drop, if it got into you at all. After I tried with the banana, but I was afraid it might break and get lost up in me somewhere. Yes, because they once took something down out of a woman that was up there for years, covered with lime salts. They're all mad to get in there where they came out of. You'd think they could never get far enough up. And then they're done with you, in a way, till the next time. Yes, because there's a wonderful feeling a wonderful feeling there all the time. So tender. How did we finish off? Yes. Oh, yes. I pulled him off into my handkerchief, pretending not to be excited. But I opened my legs. I wouldn't let him touch me inside my petticoat. I had a skirt opening up the side. I tortured the life out of him first, tickling him. I loved rousing that dog in the hotel. His eyes shut and a bird flying below us. He was shy. All the same, I liked him. Like that morning, I made him blush a little when I got over him that way, when I unbuttoned him and took his out and drew back the skin. It had a kind of eye in it. They're all buttons, men, down the middle on the wrong side of them. Molly, darling, he called me. What was his name? Jack, Joe, Harry Mulvey, was it? Yes, I think it. A lieutenant he was, rather fair. He had a laughing kind of voice. So I went around to the what-you-call-it. Everything was what-you-call-it. Moustache had he. He said he'd come back. Lord, it's just like yesterday to me. And if I was married, he'd do it to me. And I promised him, yes, faithfully. I'd let him block me now, flying. Perhaps he's dead or killed, or a captain or admiral. It's nearly 20 years. If I said Fir Tree Cove, he would. If he came up behind me and put his hands over my eyes to guess who, I might recognise him. He's young still, about 40. Perhaps he's married. Some girl in the Blackwater and is quite changed. They all do. They haven't half the character a woman has. She little knows what I did with her beloved husband before he ever dreamt of her, in broad daylight too, in the sight of the whole world, you might say. They could have put an article about it in the Chronicle. I was a bit wild after, when I blew out the old bag the biscuits were in from Benardi Brothers and exploded it. Lord, what a bang! All the woodcocks and pigeons screaming. And then coming back the same way that we went, over the middle hill, round by the old guardhouse and the Jews' burial place, pretending to read out the Hebrew on them. I wanted to fire his pistol. He said he hadn't one. He didn't know what to make of me, with his peaked cap on that he always wore crooked, as often as I settled it straight. HMS Calypso, swinging my hat. That old bishop that spoke off the altar, his long preach about women's higher functions and about how girls are now riding the bicycle and wearing peaked caps and the new woman bloomers. God send him sense. And me more money. I suppose they called after him. I never thought that would be my name, Bloom, when I used to write it in print to see how it looked on a visiting card or practising for the butcher and oblige M. Bloom. You're looking blooming, Josie used to say after I married him. Well, it's better than Breen or Briggs. Does Brig? Or those awful names with bottom in them, Mrs. Ram's bottom, or some other kind of bottom. Mulvey, I wouldn't go mad about either. Or supposed I divorced him. Mrs. Boylan. My mother, whoever she was, might have given me a nicer name. The Lord knows after the lovely one she had, Lunita Laredo. The fun we had along Willis Road to Europa Point, twisting in and out all round the other side of Jersey. They were shaking and dancing about in my blouse, like Millie's little ones now when she runs up the stairs. I loved looking down at them. I was jumping up and down at the pepper trees and the white poplars, pulling the leaves off and throwing them at him. He went to India. He was to write. The voyages those men have to make to the ends of the world and back. It's the least they might get, a squeeze or two at a woman while they can, going out to be drowned or blown up somewhere. I went up Windmill Hill to the flats that Sunday morning with Captain Rubeus that was dead. Spyglass like the sentry had. He said he'd have one or two from on board. I wore that frock from the Beaumarchais Paris and the coral necklace. The straits shining. I could see over to Morocco, almost the Bay of Tangier, white, and the Atlas Mountains with snow on it, and the straits like a river, so clear. Harry, Molly, darling. I was thinking of him on the sea all the time after at Mass, when my petticoat began to slip down at the elevation. Weeks and weeks I kept the handkerchief under my pillow for the smell of him there. There was no decent perfume to be got in that Gibraltar, only that cheap Peau d'Espagne that faded and left a stink on you. More than anything, I wanted to give him a memento. He gave me that clumsy claddagh ring for luck that I gave Gardner going to South Africa, where those Boers killed him with their war and fever. But they were written well all the same, as if it brought its bad luck with it, like an opal or pearl. Must have been pure 16-carat gold, because it was very heavy. I can see his face, clean shaven.
That train again, weeping tone, once in the dear dead days beyond recall. Close my eyes, breath my lips forward, kiss, sad look eyes. Open piano error, the world the mists began. I hate that ists beg. Comes love's sweet song. I'll let that out full when I get in front of the footlights again. Kathleen Kearney and her lot of squealers, miss this, miss that, miss the other. Lot of sparrow farts skitting around talking about politics. They know as much about as my backside. Anything in the world to make themselves some way interesting. Irish homemade beauties, soldier's daughter, am I? And whose are you? Bootmakers and publicans. I beg your pardon, coach, I thought you were a wheelbarrow. They die down dead, off their feet if they ever got a chance of walking down the Alameda on an officer's arm. Like me on the band night. My eyes flash. My bust that they haven't passion. God help the poor head. I knew more about men and life when I was 15 than they'll all know at 50. They don't know how to sing a song like that gardener said. No man could look at my mouth and teeth smiling like that and not think of it. I was afraid he mightn't like my accent at first, he's so English. All father left me in spite of his stamps. I've my mother's eyes and figure. Anyhow, he always said that they're so snotty about themselves, some of those cads. He wasn't a bit like that. He was dead gone on my lips. Let them get a husband first that's fit to be looked at and a daughter like mine. Or see if they can excite a swell with money that can pick and choose whoever he wants. Like Boylan. To do it 4 or 5 times locked in each other's arms, or the voice either. I could have been a prima donna, only I married him. Comes love's old deep down chin back, not too much, make it double. My lady's bower is too long for an encore about the moated grange at twilight and vaulted rooms. Yes, I'll sing Winds That Blow from the South that he gave after the choir stairs performance. I'll change that lace on my black dress to show off my bubs, and yes, by God, I'll get that big fan mended. Make them burst with envy. My hole is itching me always when I think of him. I feel I want to. I feel some wind in me. Better go easy. Not wake him, have him at it again. Slobbering after washing every bit of myself. Back, belly, sides. If we had even a bath itself, or my own room anyway. I wish he'd sleep in some bed by himself with his cold feet on me. Give us room even to let a fart. God, or do the least thing better. Yes, hold them like that. A bit on my side. Piano quietly, sweetest. That train far away, pianissimo. One more song that was a relief wherever you be, let your wind go free. Who knows? If that pork chop I took with my cup of tea after was quite good, with the heat I couldn't smell anything off it. I'm sure that queer-looking man in the pork butcher's is a great rogue. I hope that lamp is not smoking. Fill my nose up with smuts. Better than having him leave the gas on all night. I couldn't rest easy in my bed in Gibraltar. Even getting up to see why am I so damned nervous about that. Though I like it in the winter. It's more company. Oh Lord, it was rotten cold too that winter when I was only about 10. Was I? Yes. I had the big doll with all the funny clothes, dressing her up and undressing. That icy wind skeeting across from those mountains, something Nevada, Sierra Nevada. Standing at the fire with the little bit of a short shift I had, up to heat myself. I loved dancing about in it, then make a race back into bed. I'm sure that fellow opposite used to be there, the whole time, watching with the lights out in the summer and I in my skin hopping around. I used to love myself then. Stripped at the washstand, dabbing and creaming. Only when it came to the chamber performance, I put out the lights too. So then there were 2 of us. Goodbye to my sleep for this night. Anyhow, I hope he's not gonna get in with those medicals leading him astray. To imagine he's young again, coming in at 4 in the morning. It must be, if not more. Still, he had the manners not to wake me. What do they find to gabber about all night, squandering money and getting drunker and drunker? Couldn't they drink water? Then he starts giving us his orders for eggs and tea, Findon Haddie and hot buttered toast. I suppose we'll have him sitting up like the king of the country, pumping the wrong side of the spoon up and down in his egg, wherever he learned that from. And I love to hear him falling up the stairs of a morning with the cups rattling on the tray and then play with the cat. She rubs up against you for her own sake. I wonder if she has fleas. She's as bad as a woman, always licking and lecking, but I hate their claws. I wonder do they see anything that we can't? Staring like that when she sits at the top of the stairs so long and listening as I wait. Always.
What a rubber too, that lovely fresh place I bought. I think I'll get a bit of fish tomorrow or today. Is it Friday? Yes, I will. The sun blancmange with blackcurrant jam like long ago. Not those £2 pots mixed plum and apple from the London and Newcastle Williams and Woods. Goes twice as far. Only for the bones. I hate those eels. Cod, yes. A nice piece of cod. I'm always getting enough for 3 for getting. Anyway, I'm sick of that everlasting butcher's meat from Buckley's. Loin chops and leg beef and rib steak and scrag of mutton and calves pluck. The very name is enough. Or a picnic. Suppose we all give 5 shillings each, and or let him pay, and invite some other woman for him. Well, who, Mrs. Fleming? And drive out to Furry Glen or the Strawberry Beds. We'd have an examining all the horses' toenails for slicky does with the letters. No, not with boiling there. Yes, with some cold veal and ham mixed sandwiches. There are little houses down at the bottom of the banks there on purpose. But it's as hot as blazes, he says. Not a bank holiday. Anyway, I hate those Ruck and Miriam coal boxes out for the day. I'd never again in this life get into a boat with him. After him at Bray telling the boatmen he knew how to row. If anyone asked could he ride the steeplechase for the Gold Cup, he'd say yes. Then it came on to get rough. The old thing cookered about and the weight all down my side telling me to pull the right reins. Now pull the left, and the tide all swamping and floods in through the bottom, and his oar slipping out of the stirrups. And mercy we weren't all drowned. Well, he can swim, of course. Me, no. There's no danger whatsoever. Keep yourself calm in his flannel trousers. I'd like to have tattered them down off him before all the people and gave him what one caused flagellant till he was black and blue. Do him all the good in the world. Only for that long-nosed chap. I don't know who he is, with the other beauty Burke out of the City Arms Hotel. Was there spying as usual on the slip. Always where he wasn't wanted. If there was a row in you, vomit a better face. There was no love lost between us. That's one consolation. I wonder what kind is that book he bought me. Sweets of Sin by a Gentleman of Fashion. Some other Mr. McCock, I suppose. The people gave him that nickname. Going about with his chib from one woman to another. I couldn't even change my new white shoes, all ruined with the salt water, and the hat I had with that feather all blowy and tossed on me. How annoying and provoking, because the smell of the sea excited me, of course. Sardines and the brine and Catalan Bay round the back of the rock, They're fine, all silver in the fisherman's basket. Old Luigi near 100, they said, came from Genoa, and the tall old chap with the earrings. I don't like a man you have to climb up to get at. I suppose they're all dead and rotten long ago.
Besides, I don't like being alone in this big barracks of a place at night. I suppose I'll have to put up with it. I never brought a bit of salt in even when we moved in the confusion. Musical Academy he was going to make on the first floor drawing room with a brass plate, or Bloom's private hotel he suggested. Go and ruin himself altogether the way his father did down in Ennis. Like all the things he told father he was going to do, and me, but I saw through him telling me all the lovely places we were going to go for the honeymoon. Venice by the moonlight with the gondolas and the Lake of Como. He had a picture cut out of some paper of, and mandolins and lanterns. Oh, how nice, I said. Whatever I liked he was going to do immediately, if not sooner. Will you be my man? Will you carry my can? He ought to get a leather medal with a putty rim for all the plans he invents. Then leaving us here all day. You never know what old beggar at the door for a crust with his long story. Might be a tramp and put his foot in the way to prevent me shutting it like that picture of that hardened criminal he was called in Lloyd's Weekly News. 20 years in jail. Then he comes out and murders an old woman for her muffley. Imagine his poor wife or mother, or whoever she is. Such a face you'd run miles from. I couldn't rest easy till I bolted all the doors and windows to make sure. But it's worse again being locked up in a prison or a madhouse. They ought to be all shot, or the cat of nine tails. A big brute like that would attack a poor old woman to murder her in her bed. I'd cut them off, so I would. Not that he'd be much use. Still better than nothing. The night I was sure I heard burglars in the kitchen, and he went down in his shirt with a candle and a poker as if he was looking for a mouse. As white as a sheet, frightened out of his wits, making as much noise as he possibly could for the burglar's benefit. There isn't much to steal, indeed, the Lord knows. Still, it's the feeling, especially now with Millie away. Such an idea for him to send the girl down there to learn to take photographs on account of his grandfather, instead of sending her to Scary's Academy where she'd have to learn. Not like me getting all at school. Only he'd do a thing like that all the same on account of me and Boyland. That's why he did it, I'm certain. The way he plots and plans everything out. I couldn't turn round with her in the place lately unless I bolted the door down. Gave me the fidgets coming in and knocking first when I put the chair against the door, just as I was washing myself there below with the glove. Get on your nerves. Then doing the log lady all day. Put her in a glass case with two at a time to look at her. If he knew she broke off the hand with that little gimcrack statue, with her roughness and carelessness before she left. That I got that little Italian boy to mend so that you couldn't see the join for 2 shillings. Wouldn't even team the potatoes for you. Of course she's right not to ruin her hands. I noticed he was always talking to her lately at the table, explaining things in the paper and she pretending to understand. Sly, of course. That comes from his side of the house and helping her into her coat. But if there was anything wrong with her, it's me she'd tell, not him. He can't say I pretend things, can he? I'm too honest, as a matter of fact.
I suppose he thinks I'm finished, out and laid on the shelf. Well, I'm not. No, anything like it. Well, see now. She's well on for flirting too, with Tom Devon's 2 sons, imitating me, whistling with those rumps of marigales calling for her. Can Millie come out, please? She's in great demands to pick what they can out of her, round in Nelson Street, riding Harry Devon's bicycle at night. It's as well he sent her where she is. She was just getting out of bounds, wanting to go on the skating rink and smoking their cigarettes through their nose.
I smelt it of her dress when I was biting off the thread of the bottom I sewed onto the bottom of her jacket. She couldn't hide much from me, I tell you. Only I oughtn't to have stitched it and it on her. It brings a parting and the last plum pudding too, split in 2 halves. See, it comes out no matter what they say. Her tongue is a bit too long for my taste. Your blouse is open too low, she says to me. The pan calling the kettle black bottom, and I had to tell her no. To cock her legs up like that on show on the windowsill before all the people passing. They all look at her like me when I was her age. Of course, an old rag looks good on you then. A great touch-me-not too, in her way. And the only way in the Theatre Royal, take a foot away out of that. I hate people touching me. Afraid of her life, I'd crush her skirt with the plates. A lot of that touching must go on in theatres. In the crash and the dark, there's always trying to wiggle up to you. That fellow in the pit, at the Gateless of Beerholm Tree in Trilby. The last time I'll ever go there to be squashed like that for any Trilby, or her bare bum every 2 minutes tipping me there and looking away. She's a bit daft, I think. I saw him after trying to get near 2 stylish dressed ladies outside Switch's window. At the same little game, I recognized him on the moment. The face and everything, but he didn't remember me. And she didn't even want me to kiss her at the Broadstone going away. Well, I hope she'll get someone to dance attendance on her the way I did when she was down with the mumps, her glands swollen. Where's this and where's that? Of course she can't feel anything deep yet. I never came properly till I was 22 or so. It went into the wrong place, always. Only usual girls' nonsense and giggling, that Connie Connolly writing to her in white ink on black paper, sealed with sealing wax. Though she clapped when the curtain came down because he looked so handsome. Then we had mutton Harvey for breakfast, dinner and supper. I thought to myself afterwards, it must be real love if a man gives up his life for her that way for nothing. I suppose there are few men like that left. It's hard to believe in it though, unless it really happened to me. The majority of them with not a particle of love in their natures, to find 2 people like that nowadays full up of each other. That would feel the same way as you do. They're usually a bit foolish in the head. His father must have been a bit queer to go and poison himself after her. Still, poor old man, I suppose. He felt lost. Always making love to my things too. A few old rags I have. Wanting to put her hair up at 15. My powder too only ruined her skin on her. She's time enough for that all her life after. Of course she's restless, knowing she's pretty with her lips so red. A pity they don't stay that way. I was too. But there's no use going to the fair with a thing answering me like a fish woman. When I asked to go for half a stone of potatoes the day we met Mrs. Joe Gallagher at the trotting matches, and she pretended not to see us in her trap with Frary the solicitor. We went grand enough till I gave her 2 damn fine cracks across the ear for herself. Take that now for answering me like that, and that for your impudence. She had me that exasperated, of course, contradicting. I was bad-tempered too, because how was it there was a weed in the tea? Or I didn't sleep the night before. Cheese I ate it was. And I told her over and over again not to leave knives crossed like that, because she had nobody to command her, as she said herself. Well, if he doesn't correct her faith, I will. That was the last time she turned on the theatre. I was just like that myself. They didn't order me about that place. It's his fault, of course, having the 2 of us slaving here instead of getting in a woman long ago. Am I ever going to have a proper servant again? Of course, then she'd see him coming. I'd have to let her know, or she'd revenge it. Aren't they a nuisance? That old Mrs. Fleming. You have to be walking around after her, putting things into her hands, sneezing and farting into pots. Well, of course, she's old. She can't help it. A good job I found that rotten old smelly dishcloth that got lost behind the dresser. I knew there was something and opened the window.
Bringing in his friends to entertain them. Like the night he walked home with the dog, if you please, that might have been mad. Especially Simon Daedalus' son. His father, such a criticiser, with his glasses up, with his tall hat on him at the cricket match, and a great big hole in his sock. One thing laughing at the other, and his son that got all those prizes for whatever he won them in the intermediate. Imagine climbing over the railings. If anybody saw him that knew us, wonder he didn't tear a big hole in his grand funeral trousers, as if the one nature gave wasn't enough for anybody hawking him. Down into the dirty old kitchen now. Is he right in the head, I ask? Pity it wasn't washing day. Such as she was on account of her paralysed husband getting worse. There's always something wrong with them. Disease, or they have to go under an operation, or if it's not that, it's drink, and he beats her. I'll have to hunt around again for someone. Every day I get up, there's some new thing on. Sweet God, well, when I'm stretched out, dead in my grave, I suppose I'll have some peace. I want to get up. A minute if I'm let wait. Oh, Jesus. Wait, yes, that thing has come on me. Yes, now, wouldn't that afflict you? Of course, all the poking and rooting and ploughing he had up on me. Now what am I to do? Friday? Saturday, Sunday? Wouldn't that pester the soul out of a body? Unless he likes it. Some men do, God knows. There's always something wrong with us. 5 days every 3 or 4 weeks. Usual monthly auction. Isn't it simply sickening? That night, it came on me like that. The one and only time we were in a box that Michael Gunn gave him to see Mrs. Kendall and her husband at the Gaiety. Something he did about insurance for him. Drimmies. I was fit to be tied, though. I wouldn't give in with that gentleman of fashion staring down at me with his glasses, and him the other side of me talking about Spinoza and his soul that's dead, I suppose millions of years ago. I smiled the best I could, all in a swamp, leaning forward as if I was interested. Oh, Patience, it's pouring out of me like the sea. Anyhow, he didn't make me pregnant, as big as he is. I don't want to ruin the clean sheets. The clean linen I wore brought it on too. Damn it, and they always want to see a stain on the bed to know you're a virgin. For them, that's all that's troubling them. They're such fools too. You could be a widow or divorced 40 times over. A daub of Reading would do, or blackberry juice. Oh no, that's too purpley. Ah, Jamesy, let me up out of this poo. Sweets of sin, whoever suggested that business for women, what between clothes and cooking and children, This damned old bed too jingling like the dickens. I suppose they could hear us away on the other side of the park till I suggested to put the quilt on the floor with the pillar under my bottom. I wonder, is it nicer in the day? I think it is. Easy. I think I'll cut all this hair off me there, scalding me. I might look like a young girl. Wouldn't he get the great sucking the next time he turned up my clothes on me? I'd give anything to see his face. Where's the chamber gone? Easy. I've a holy horror of its breaking under me after that old commode. I wonder, was I too heavy sitting on his knee? I made him sit in the easy chair purposely. When I took off only my blouse and skirt first in the other room, he was so busy being where he oughtn't to be. He never felt me. I hope my breath was sweet after those kissing comforts. Easy. God, I remember one time I could scout it out, straight, whistling like a man. Almost easy. Oh Lord, how noisy. I hope there are bubbles on it for a wad of money from some fella. I'll have to perfume it in the morning. Don't forget. I bet he never saw a better pair of thighs than that. Look how white they are. The smoothest place is right there between this bit here. How soft, like a peach. Easy. God, I wouldn't mind being a man and get up on a lovely woman. Oh Lord, what a row you're making, like the Jersey lily. Easy. Oh, how the waters come down at Lahore.
Who knows, is there anything the matter with my insides, or have I something growing in me? Getting that thin like that every week. When was it last? Whit Monday? Yes, it's only about 3 weeks. I ought to go to the doctor, only it would be like before I married him, when I had that white thing coming from me, and Floey made me go to that dry old stick, Dr. Collins, for women's diseases on Pembroke Road. Your vagina, he called it. I suppose that's how he got all the glitmeres and carpets, getting round all those rich ones off Stephen's Green, running up to him for every little fiddle-faddle. Her vagina and her cocachina, they've money, of course, so they're all right. I wouldn't marry him, not if he was the last man in the world. Besides, there's something queer about their children, always smelling around those filthy bitches all sides, asking me if what I did had an offensive odor. What did he want me to do but the one thing? Gold, maybe? What a question, if I smothered it all over his wrinkly old face for him with all of my compliment. I suppose he'd know then. Could you pass it easily? Pass what, I thought he was talking about. The Rock of Gibraltar, that was the way he puts it. That's a very nice invention too, by the way. Only I like letting myself down after, in the hole, as far as I can, squeeze and pull the chain, then to flush it. Nice, cool pins and needles. Still, there's something in it. I suppose I always used to know by Millie's, when she was a child, whether she had worms or not. Still, all the same, paying him for that. How much is that, doctor? 1 guinea, please, and asking me, had I frequent omissions? Where do those old fellas get all the words? They have omissions, with his short-sighted eyes on me, cocked sideways. I wouldn't trust him too far to give me chloroform or God knows what else. Still, I liked him when he sat down to write the thing out. Frowning so severe his nose, intelligent like. That you be damned, you lying strap. Oh, anything, no matter. Who except an idiot? He was clever enough to spot that, of course. That was all thinking of him and his mad, crazy letters. My precious one. Everything connected with your glorious body. Everything. Underlined. That comes from it is a thing of beauty and joy. Forever something he got out of some nonsensical book that he had. Me always at myself 4 or 5 times a day, and I said I hadn't. Are you sure? Oh, yes, I said. I'm quite sure in a way that shut him up. I knew what was coming next. Only natural weakness it was. He excited me. I don't know how the first night ever we met when I was lying in Rehoboth Terrace. We stood staring at one another for about 10 minutes, as if we met somewhere. I suppose on account of me being Jewish, looking after my mother, he used to amuse me. The things he said with the half-slithering smile on him, and all the Doyles said he was going to stand for a member of Parliament. Oh, wasn't I the born fool to believe all his blather about Home Rule and the Land League? Sending me that long stroll of a song out of the Huguenots to sing in French? To be more classy? Oh, Beau plays de la Terrain that I never even sang once, explaining and rigmaroling about religion and persecution. He won't let you enjoy anything naturally then. Might he as a great favour. The very first opportunity he got a chance, and Brighton Square running into my bedroom, pretending the ink got on his hands to wash it off with the Albion milk and sulphur soap I used to use, and the gelatin still around it. Oh, I laughed myself sick at him that day. I'd better not make an all-night sitting on this chair. They ought to make chambers a natural size so that a woman could sit on it properly. He kneels down to do it. I suppose there isn't in all creation another man with the habits he has. Look at the way he's sleeping at the foot of the bed. How can he without a hard bolster? It's well he doesn't kick, or he might knock out all my teeth. Breathing with his hands on his nose like that Indian god he took me to show one wet Sunday in the museum in Kildare Street. All yellow and a pinafore lying on his side, on his hands with the 10 toes sticking out. That he said was a bigger religion than the Jews, and our lords both put together all over Asia, in imitating him. Ashes always imitating everybody. I suppose he used to sleep at the foot of the bed too, with his big square feet up in his wife's mouth. Damn this stinking thing.
Anyway, where's this those napkins are? Ah, yes, I know. I hope the old press doesn't creak again. Ah, I knew it would. He's sleeping hard, had a good time somewhere. Still, she must have given him great value for his money. Of course, he has to pay for it from her. Oh, this nuisance of a thing. I hope they'll have something better for us in the other world. Tying ourselves up, God help us. That's all right for tonight now. The lumpy old jingly bed always reminds me of old Cohen. I suppose he scratched himself in it often enough. And he thinks Father bought it from Lord Napier that I used to admire when I was a little girl. Because I told him, easy, piano. Ooh, I like my bed. God, here we are as bad as ever after 16 years. How many houses were we in at all? Raymond Terrace and Ontario Terrace and Lombard Street and Holly Street. And he goes about whistling every time we're on the run again. His Huguenots or the Frogs March, pretending to help the men with our 4 sticks of furniture. And then the City Arms Hotel, worse and worse, says Warden Daly, that charming place on the landing. Always somebody inside praying, then leaving all their stinks after them. Always know who was in there last. Every time we're just getting on right, something happens, or he puts his big foot in it. Toms and Heelys and Mr. Cuffs and Drimmies. Either he's going to be run into prison over his old lottery tickets that was to be all our salvations, or he goes and gives impudence. Well, if I'm coming home with a sack soon out of the Freeman too, like the rest on account of those Sinn Féiners or the Freemasons, then we'll see if the little man he showed me dribbling along all in the wet, all by himself round by Cody's Lane, will give him much consolation that he says is so capable and sincerely Irish. He is indeed, judging by the sincerity of the trousers I saw on him. Wait. There's George Church bells. Wait, 3/4 of the hour. Wait, 2 o'clock. Well, that's a nice hour of the night for him to be coming home at to anybody, climbing down into the area. If anybody saw him, I'll knock him off that little habit tomorrow. First, I'll look at his shirt to see, or I'll see if he has that French letter still in his pocketbook. I suppose he thinks I don't know deceitful men. All their 20 pockets aren't enough for their lies. Then why should we tell them, even if it's the truth They don't believe you. Then, tucked up in bed like those babies in the aristocrat's masterpiece he bought me another time, as if we hadn't enough of that in real life, without some old aristocrat or whatever his name is disgusting you more with those rotten pictures. Children with 2 heads and no legs. That's the kind of villainy they're always dreaming about, with not another thing in their empty heads. They ought to get slow poison, the half of them. Then tea and toast for him, buttered on both sides, and new laid eggs. I suppose I'm nothing anymore. When I wouldn't let him lick me on Holly Street one night, man tyrant as ever. For the one thing, he slept on the floor half the night naked, the way the Jews used to when somebody's dying belonging to them, and wouldn't eat any breakfast or speak a word, wanting to be petted. So I thought I stood out enough for one time and let him. He does it all wrong too, thinking only of his own pleasure. His tongue is too flat, or I don't know what. He forgets that then I don't. I'll make him do it again if he doesn't mind himself, and lock him down to sleep in the coal cellar with the black beetles.
I wonder, was it her Josie? Off her head with my cast-offs. He's such a poor liar too. No, he'd never have the courage with a married woman. That's why he wants me in Boleyn. Though, as for her Dennis, as she calls him, that forlorn-looking spectacle, you wouldn't call him your husband? Yes, it's some little bitch he's got in, even when I was with him and with Millie at the college races. That hornblower with the child's bonnet on top of his knob let us into the back way. He was thrown into the sheep's eye at those two, doing skirt duty up and down. I tried to wink at him first, but no, of course, and that's why the way his money goes. This is the fruits of Mr. Paddy Dignam. Yes, they were all in the great style at the grand funeral in the paper Boylan brought in. If they saw a real officer's funeral, that'd be something. Reversed arms, muffled drums, the poor horse walking behind Black L. Bloom, and Tom Kiernan, that drunken little barley man, the bit off his tongue falling down the man's WC, drunken in some place or the other, and Martin Cunningham, and the 2 Degalises, and Fanny McCoy's husband. White head of cabbage-skinned little thing with a turn in her eye trying to sing my songs. She'd want to be born all over again, and her green dress with a low neck as she can't attract them any other way. Like dabbling on a rainy day, I could see it all now plainly, and they called that friendship, killing and then burying one another. And they, with all their wives and families at home, more especially Jack Power, keeping the barmaid as he does. Of course, his wife is always sick or going to be sick or just getting better of it, and he's a good looking man still, though getting a bit grey behind the ears. They're a nice lot, all of them. Well, not going to get my husband again into their clutches if I can help it. Making fun of him when he's behind his back. I know well when he goes on with his idiotics, because he has the sense enough not to squander every penny piece he earns down those gutlets, and looks after his wife and family. Good for nothings. Poor Paddy Dignam and all the same. I'm sorry in a way for him. What with his wife and 5 children going to do unless he was insured? Comical little teetotum always stuck up in some pub corner, and her son waiting. Bill Bailey, wouldn't you please come home? Her widow weeds need to improve her appearance. They're awfully becoming if you're not good looking. What man wasn't he? Yes, he was at the Glencree dinner. And Ben Dollard? Be a sparrow tone the night he borrowed the swallowtail to sing out in the Holly Street. Squeezed and squashed into them, grinning all over his dolly face like a well-whipped up child's body. Didn't he look like a balmy bollock, sure enough? That must have been a spectacle on stage. Imagine paying 5 shillings in the preserved seats to see him and Simon Dedalus too. He was always turning up half screwed up, singing the second verse first. The Old Love as the New One was one of his. So sweetly sang the maiden on the hawthorn bough. He was always for flirtifying too when I sang Martana with him with Freddie Mayer's private opera. He had a deliciously glorious voice. Phoebe dearest, goodbye sweetheart. He always sang it, not like Bartle Darcy's sweetheart. Goodbye, of course. He had the gift of a voice, so there was no art in it. All over you like a warm shower bath. Oh, Martina, Wildwood Flower, we sang splendidly through. It was a bit too high for my register even transponded. And he was married at the time to May Goodling. But then he'd say or do something to knock the good out of it. He's a widower now. I wonder what sort is in his son. He says he's an author and going to be a university professor of Italian, and I'm to take lessons. What is he driving at? Now showing him my photo. It's not good of me. I ought to have it taken in. Drapery that never looks out of fashion. Still, I look young in it. I wonder he didn't make him a present of it all together, and me too. After all, why not? I saw him driving down to Knightsbridge station with his father and mother. I was in mourning. That's 11 years ago now. Yes, he'd be 11. Though, what was the good in going into mourning for what was neither one thing nor the other? Of course, he insisted he'd go into mourning for the cat. I suppose he's a man now by this time. He was an innocent boy then, and a darling little fellow in his Lord Fauntleroy suit, and the curly hair like a prince on the stage. When I saw him in Matt Dillon's, he liked me too, I remember. They all do. Wait, by God, yes, wait, hold on. He was on the cards this morning when I laid out the deck. Union with a young stranger, neither dark nor fair. You met before? I thought it meant, but he's no chicken nor stranger either. Besides, my face was turned the other way. What was the 7th card after that? The 10 of spades for a journey by land. Then there was a letter on its way, and scandals too. The 3rd queen, the 3 queens, and the 8 of diamonds for a rising society. Yes, wait. It all came out. And the 2nd 8s for new garments. Look at that. And I didn't dream something too.
Yes. There was something about poetry in it. Oh, I hope he hasn't long, greasy hair hanging into his eyes. Or standing up like a red Indian. What did they go about like that for? Only getting themselves and their poetry laughed at. I always liked poetry when I was a girl. First, I thought he was a poet like Byron, and none an ounce of it in his composition. I thought he was quite different. I wonder, is he too young? He's about... Wait, 88. I was married, 88. Millie is 15 yesterday. 89. What age was he then at Dillon's? 5 or 6 in 88? I suppose he's 20 or more. I'm not too old for him if he's 23 or 24. I hope he's not that stuck-up university student sort. No. Otherwise he wouldn't be sitting down in the old kitchen with him taking Eps's cocoa. And taking... He pretended to understand it all, probably. He told him he was out of Trinity College. He's very young to be a professor. Hope he's not a professor like Goodwin was. He was a patent professor of John Jameson. They all write about some woman in their poetry. Well, I suppose he won't find many like me. Where softly sighs of love the light guitar. Where poetry is in the air. The blue sea and the moon shining so beautifully coming back from that night boat from Tarifa. The lighthouse at Europa Point. The guitar that fellow played was so expressive. Will I never go back there again? All new faces. 2 glancing eyes, a lattice head. I'll sing that for him. They're my eyes.
if he's anything of a poet. 2 eyes as darkly bright as love's own star. Aren't those beautiful words? As love's young star. It'll be a change, the Lord knows, to have an intelligent person to talk to about yourself. Not always listening to him. Billy Prescott's ad and Keyes' ad and Tom the Devil's ad. And then if something goes wrong in their business, we have to suffer. I'm sure he's very distinguished. I'd like to meet a man like that. God, not those other ruck. Besides, he's young. Those fine young men I could see down in Margate Strand bathing place from the side of the rock, standing up in the sun, naked, like a god or something, and then plunging into the sea with them. Oh, why aren't all men like that? There'd be some consolation for a woman. Like that lovely little statue he bought. I could look at him all day. Long curly head and his shoulders. His finger up for you to listen. There's real beauty and poetry for you. I often felt I wanted to kiss him all over. Also his lovely young cock there, so simply. I wouldn't mind taking him in my mouth if nobody was looking. As if it was asking you to suck it. So clean and white he looked, with his boyish face. I would too, in half a minute, even if some of it went down. What? It's only like gruel or the dew. There's no danger. Besides, he'd be so clean, compared with those pigs of men I suppose never dream of washing it from one year's end to the other, the most of them. Only that's what gives the women moustaches. Oh, I'm sure it'll be grand, if I can only get in with a handsome young poet. At my age, I'll throw him the first thing in the morning to see if the wish card comes out. Or I'll try pairing the lady herself and see if he comes out. I'll read and study all I can, or learn a bit off by heart, if I knew what he likes, so he won't think me stupid, if he thinks all women are the same. And I can teach him the other part. I'll make him feel all over him till he half faints under me. Then he'll write about me, lover and mistress. Publicly too, with our 2 photographs in all the papers when he becomes famous. Oh, but then what am I going to do about him? Though, no, that's no way for him. Has he no manners, nor no refinement, nor no nothing in his nature? Slapping us behind like that on my bottom because I didn't call him Hugh. The ignoramus that doesn't know poetry from a cabbage. That's what you get for not keeping them in their proper place. Pulling off his shoes and trousers there, on the chair, before me, so barefaced without even asking permission. And standing out that vulgar way in the half of shirt they wear to be admired, like a priest or a butcher or those old hypocrites in the time of Julius Caesar. Of course, he's right enough in his way to pass the time as a joke. Sure, might as well be in bed with what? With a lion? God, I'm sure he'd have something better to say for himself. An old lion would. Oh, well, I suppose because they were so plump and tempting in my short petticoat he couldn't resist. They excite myself sometimes. It's well for men. All the amount of pleasure they get off a woman's body. We're so round and white for them always. I wished I was one myself for change. Just to try with that thing they have swelling upon you so hard and at the same time so soft when you touch it. My Uncle John has a thing long. I heard those corner boys saying, passing the corner of Marylebone Lane. My Aunt Mary has a thing hairy. Because it was dark and they knew a girl was passing. It did make me blush. Why should it either? It's only nature. and he puts his thing long into my Aunt Mary's hairy, etc. And turns out to be you put the handle in a sweeping brush. Men again, all over. They can pick and choose what they please. A married woman, or a fast widow, or a girl, for their different tastes.
Like those houses round behind Irish Street. No, but we're to be always chained up. They're not going to be chaining me up. No damn fear. Once I start, I tell you, for stupid husband's jealousy, why can't we all remain friends over it instead of quarrelling? Her husband found out what they did together. Well, naturally, and if he did, can he undo it? He's a coronado anyway, whatever he does. And then he's going to the other mad extreme about the wife in Fair's tyrants. Of course, the man never casts a second thought on the husband or wife. Either it's a woman he wants and he gets her. What else we given all those desires for? I'd like to know. I can't help it if I'm young still, can I? It's a wonder I'm not an old shrivelled hag before my time, living with him. So cold, never embracing me except sometimes when he's asleep, the wrong end of me, not knowing, I suppose, who he has. Any man that kiss a woman's bottom, I'd throw my hat at him. After that, he'd kiss anything unnatural. Were we haven't one atom of any kind of expression in us, all of us, the same two lumps of lard before. Ever I do that to a man, the dirty brutes, the mere thought of it is enough. I kiss the feet of you, señorita. There's some sense in that. Didn't he kiss our hall door? Yes, he did. What a madman. Nobody understands his cracked ideas but me. Still, of course, a woman wants to be embraced 20 times a day, almost to make her look young, no matter by who, so long as to be in love or loved by someone. If the fellow you want isn't there sometimes, by the Lord God, I was thinking when I go around by the quays, there some dark evening where nobody'd know me, and pick up a sailor off the sea that I'd be hot on it for and not care a pin whose I was, only to do it off up a gate somewhere. Or one of those wild-looking gypsies in Rathfarnham had their camp pitched near the Bloomfield laundry to try and steal our things if they could. I only sent mine there a few times for the name model laundry. Sent me back over and over some old ones, old stockings. The blackguard-looking fellow with fine eyes, peeling a switch, attacked me in the dark and ride me up against the wall without a word, or a murderer, anybody. What they do themselves, the fine gentlemen in their silk hats. That KC lives up somewhere this way, coming out of Hardwick Lane, the night he gave us the fish supper, on account of winning over the boxing match. Of course it was for me he gave it. I knew him by his gaiters and the walk, and when I turned round a minute after just to see, there was a woman after coming out of it too, some filthy prostitute. Then he goes home to his wife after that, only I suppose the half of those sailors are rotten again with disease. Oh, move over, you big carcass, out of that. For the love of Mike, listen to him. The winds that waft my sighs to thee so well, he may sleep inside the great suggester, Don Polo de la Flora. If he knew how he came out on the cards this morning, he'd have something to sigh for. A dark man in some perplexity, between £2.7 too, in prison for Lord knows what he does, and I'm to be slouching around down in the kitchen to get his lordship his breakfast, while he's rolling up like a mummy. Will I indeed? Did you ever see me running? It'd be much better for the world to be governed by women in it. You wouldn't see women going and killing one another and slaughtering. When do you ever see women rolling around drunk like they do, or gambling every penny they have and losing it in horses? Yes, because a woman, whatever she does, she knows where to stop. Sure, they wouldn't be in the world at all, only for us. They don't know what it is to be a woman and a mother. Where would they all be if they hadn't all a mother to look after them? What I never had. That's why I suppose he's running wild now. Out at night away from his books and studies and not living at home on account of the usual rowdy house, I suppose. Well, it's a poor case that those that have a fine son like that, they're not satisfied, and I none was. He not able to make one, it wasn't my fault we came together when I was watching the two dogs up in her behind, in the middle of the naked street. That disheartened me altogether. I suppose I oughtn't to have buried him in that little woolly jacket I knitted, crying as was, but given it to some poor child, but I knew well I'd never have another. Our first death too it was. We were never the same. Oh, I'm not going to think myself into the glooms about that anymore. I wonder why he wouldn't stay the night. I felt all the time it was somebody strange he brought in instead of roving around the city meeting God knows who, night walkers and pickpockets. His poor mother wouldn't like that if she was alive, ruining himself for life perhaps. Still, it's a lovely hour, so silent. I used to love coming home after dances, the air of the night. They have friends they can talk to. We've none. Either he wants what he won't get, or it's some woman ready to stick her knife in you. I hate that woman. No wonder they treat us the way they do. We are a dreadful lot of bitches. I suppose it's all the troubles we have makes us so snappy. I'm not like that. He could easily have slept in there on the sofa in the other room. Suppose he was shy as a boy, he being so young, hardly 20. Of me in the next room, he'd have heard me on the chamber. What harm, Daedalus, I wonder.
Those names in Gibraltar, De La Paz, De La Gracia, they had the devil's queer names there. Father Vialplana of Santa Maria, that give me the rosary, Rosales y O'Reilly in La Cala La Sieta, Ruvialtas and Paisimbo, and Mrs. Opisso in Governor Street. Oh, what a name. I'd go and drown myself in the first river if I had a name like her. Oh my, and all the bits of streets. Paradise Ramp and Bedlam Ramp and Rogers Ramp and Crutchet's Ramp and the Devil's Gap steps. Well, small blame to me if I'm a harum-scarum. I know I am a bit. I declare to God I don't feel a day older than then. I wonder could I get my tongue round any of the Spanish. Como esto, usted muy bien, gracia y usted. See, I haven't forgotten it all. I thought I had, only for the grammar. A noun is the name of any person, place or thing. Pity I had never tried to read that novel Cantankerous Mrs. Rubio lent me by Valera, with the questions in it all upside down. The two ways I always knew we'd go away in the end. I can tell him the Spanish, and he'll tell me the Italian. Then he'll see I'm not so ignorant. What a pity he didn't stay. I'm sure the poor fellow was dead tired and wanted a good sleep badly. I could have brought him in his breakfast in bed with a bit of toast, so long as I didn't do it on the knife for bad luck. Or if the woman was going her rounds with the watercress and something nice and tasty, there are a few olives in the kitchen he might like. I could never bear the look of them. In a Brines, I could do the criada. The room looks all right since I changed it the other way. You see, something was telling me all the time I'd have to introduce myself, not knowing me from Adam. Very funny, wouldn't it? I'm his wife, or pretend we were in Spain, with him half awake without a God's notion where he is. Dos huevos, estraldas, senor. Lord, the cracked things that come into my head. Sometimes it'd be great fun, supposing he stayed with us. Why not? There's the room upstairs empty and Millie's bed in the back room. He could do his writing and studies at the table in there for all the scribbling he does at it. And if he wants to read in bed in the morning, like me, as he's making the breakfast for one, he can make it for two. I'm sure I'm not going to take in lodgers off the street for him. If he takes a gazebo of a house like this, I'd love to have a long talk with an intelligent, well-educated person. I'd have to get a nice pair of red slippers like those Turks with the fez used to sell, or yellow and a nice semi-transparent morning gown that I badly want. Or a peach blossom dressing jacket like the one long ago in Walpole's, only 8 and 6, or 18 and 6. I'll just give him one more chance. I'll get up early in the morning. I'm sick of Cohen's old bed. In any case, I might go over to the markets to see all the vegetables and cabbages and tomatoes and carrots, and all kinds of splendid fruits, all coming in lovely and fresh. Who knows who'd be the first man I'd meet? They're out looking for it in the morning. Mammy Dillon used to say they are, and the night too. That was her mass going. I'd love a big juicy pear now to melt in your mouth, like when I used to be in the longing way. Then I'll throw him up his eggs and teas in the moustache cup she gave him to make his mouth bigger. I suppose he'd like my nice cream too. I know what I'll do. I'll go about rather gay. Not too much singing. A bit now and then. Mi fa piet misetto. Then I'll start dressing myself to go out. Presto non son pil forte.
I'll put on my best shift and drawers. Let him have a good eyeful out of that to make his Mickey stand for him. I'll let him know if that's what he wanted. That his wife is fucked. Yes, and damn well fucked too. Up to the neck nearly. Not by him. 5 or 6 times hand running. There's a mark of his spunk in the clean sheet. I wouldn't bother to even iron it out. That ought to satisfy him. If you don't believe me, feel my belly. Unless I made him stand there and put him into me. I've a mind to tell him every scrap and make him do it in front of me. Serve him right. It's all his own fault if I'm an adulteress, as the thing in the gallery said. Oh, much about it if that's all the harm ever we did in this vale of tears. God knows it's not much. Doesn't everybody only they hide it? I suppose that's what a woman is supposed to be there for. Or he wouldn't have made us the way he did. So attractive to men. Then if he wants to kiss my bottom, I'll drag open my drawers and bulge it right out in his face as large as life. He can stick his tongue 7 miles up my hole as he's there. My brown part. Then I'll tell him I want number 1 or perhaps 30. I'll tell him I want the by underclothes. Then if he gives me that, well, he won't be too bad. I don't want to suck it all out of him like other women do. I could often have written out a fine cheque for myself and write his name on it for a couple of pounds. A few times, he forgot to lock it up. Besides, he won't spend it. I'll let him do it off on me behind, provided he doesn't smear all over my good drawers. Oh, I suppose that can't be helped. I'll do the indifferent 1 or 2 questions. I'll know by the answers when he's like that he can't keep a thing back. I know every turn in him. I'll tighten my bottom well and let out a few smutty words. Smell rump or lick my shit. Or the first mad thing comes into my head. Then I'll suggest about... Yes. I'll wait. Now, Sonny, my turn is coming. I'll be quite gay and friendly over it. Oh, but I was forgetting this bloody pest of a thing. You wouldn't know which to laugh or cry. We're such a mixture of plum and apple. No. I'll have to wear the old things. So much the better. It'll be more pointed. He'll never know whether he did it nor not there. That's good enough for you. Any old thing at all. Then I'll wipe him off me just like a business. His omission. Then I'll go out. I'll have him eyeing up at the ceiling. Where's she gone now? Make him want me. That's the only way.
A quarter after. What an unearthly hour. I suppose they're just getting up in China now, combing out their pigtails for the day.
We'll soon have the nuns ringing the Angelus. They've nobody coming in to spoil their sleep, except an odd priest or two for his night office. The alarm clock next door at cock shout, clattering the brains out of itself. Let me see if I can doze off again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What kind of flowers are those they invented? Like stars. The wallpaper in Lombard Street was much nicer. The apron he gave me was like that. Something I only wore it twice. Better lower this lamp and try again so I can get up early. I'll go to Lamb's there beside Finlater's and get them to send us some flowers to put about the place, in case he brings him home tomorrow. Today, I mean. No, Friday's an unlucky day. First, I want to do the place up some way. The dust grows in it, I think, while I'm asleep. Then we can have music and cigarettes. I can accompany him first. I must clean the keys of the piano with milk. What'll I wear? Shall I wear a big white rose? Or those fairy cakes in Lipton's? I love the smell of a rich big shop. At 7.5 shillings a pound. Or the other ones with the cherries in them. And the pink sugar lid. A couple of pounds. Of course, a nice plant for the middle of the table. I'd get that cheaper in... Wait, where's this I saw them not long ago? I love flowers. I'd love to have the whole place swimming with roses. God of heaven, there's nothing like nature. The wild mountains, then the sea and the waves rushing, then the beautiful country with the fields of oats and wheat and all kinds of things, and all the fine cattle going about that would do your heart good to see. Rivers and lakes and flowers, all sorts of shapes and smells and colours springing up. Even out of the ditches, primroses and violets. Nature it is. As for them saying there's no God, I wouldn't give a snap of my 2 fingers for all their learning. Why don't they go and create something? I often asked him, atheists, or whatever they call themselves, go and wash the cobbles off themselves first. Then they go howling for the priest, and they dying. And why? Why? Because they're afraid of hell, on account of their bad conscience. Ah, yes, I know them well. Who was the first person in the universe? Before there was anybody that made it all. Who, huh? That they don't know. Neither do I. So, there you are. They might as well try to stop the sun from rising tomorrow. The sun shines for you, he said. The day we were lying among the rhododendrons on Hoth Head, in the grey tweed suit and his straw hat. The day I got him to propose to me. Yes. First, I gave him a bit of seed cake out of my mouth. And it was a leap year, like now. Yes. 16 years ago. My God. After that long kiss, I near lost my breath. Yes. He said I was a flower of the mountain. Yes. So, we are flowers. All a woman's body. Yes, that was one true thing, he said, in his life. And the sun shines for you today. Yes. That was why I liked him. Because I saw he understood or felt what a woman is. And I knew I could always get around him. And I gave him all the pleasure I could, leading him on till he asked me to say yes. And I wouldn't at first. I only looked out over the sea and the sky. I was thinking of so many things he didn't know of. Of Mulvey, of Mr. Stanhope, and Hester, and Father, and old Captain Groves, and the sailors playing all birds fly. And I say, stoop, and washing up the dishes, they called it on the pier, and the sentry in front of the governor's house, thing around his white helmet. Poor divil, half roasted. And the Spanish girls laughing in their shawls and their tall combs, and the auctions in the morning, and the Greeks and the Jews and the Arabs, and the divil knows who else from all ends of Europe and Duke Street. And the Fowls Market, all clucking outside Larby Sharon's, and the poor donkeys slipping half asleep, and the vague fellows in the cloaks asleep in the shade on the steps, and the big wheels of the carts of the bulls, and the old castle, thousands of years old. Yes. And those handsome Moors, all in white, and turbans like kings, asking you to sit down in their little bit of a shop. And Rhonda with the old windows of the posadas, glancing eyes. And a lattice hid for her lover to kiss. And the iron, and the wine shops half open at night, and the castanets, and the night we missed the boat to Algeciras. The watchman going about, serene with his lamp. And oh, that awful, deep torrent. Oh, and the sea, the crimson, sometimes like fire, and the glorious sunsets, and the fig trees in the Almeida Gardens. Yes. And all the queer little streets, and pink and blue and yellow houses. And the rose gardens, and the jessamine, and the geraniums and cactuses and Gibraltar. As a girl, where I was a flower of the mountain. Yes. And when I put the rose in my hair like the Andalusian girls used. Or shall I wear red? Yes. how he kissed me under the Moorish wall. And I thought, well, as well him as another. And then I asked him, with my eyes. I asked again, yes. And then he asked me, would I? To say yes, my mountain flower. And first I put my arms around him, yes. And I drew him down to me so he could feel my breasts all perfume, yes. And his heart was going like mad. Yes, I said yes, I will. Yes.